What's up, techies and small business owners? Before we go ahead and get into the questions, I just want to go ahead and give you guys a very, very warm welcome to both of our guests today. So, Tim and Piper, you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves just so our guests understand a bit more about who they're listening to today.
I'm Piper Wilson. I'm the Area 7 Deca President and Vice President of Marketing.
And I am Tim Marlowe, founder and owner of Smart Advertisement and BD Local Podcast Network, Media and Broadcasting Company here in Tacoma, Washington.
Perfect. And Tim and Piper, you guys just want to go ahead and talk a bit more about your experience with marketing before we go ahead and dive into some of the questions here.
All right. So I have participated in Deca for the last 3 years. My first year in Deca, I took part in the business startup plan, which wasn't really heavy in marketing, but I did get a little bit of a taste for what it would look like for a small business to work on marketing and try to push themselves out there to the public. And then my second year in Deca, I hosted a charity event, a 5K for cystic fibrosis. And that was largely a part of marketing because I had to get my event out there to the public and I had to work with small businesses to make it a two-way project. You know, they needed help marketing their businesses and we could help with that. And now as I'm serving as your Area 7 Deca president, I'm the VP of marketing, which means I'm in charge of the marketing for Washington Deca. And then we recently had the Innovate 2020 conference, and I was in charge of marketing for that. So that's my experience with marketing.
Wow, I don't know if I can even follow up on that one. She's been doing marketing for almost just as long as I have. So no, well, we all have been marketing all of our lives. So just understand marketing is just the brand that you wear on a daily basis. And, you know, my experience with marketing myself, I started in network marketing about 5-6 years ago and just learned the power of building networks and relationships. No matter what you were really selling, it seemed like it always boiled down to, you know, can we come down to a one-on-one conversation and make a transaction happen? So then we shifted into the company that we opened and ran and continued to still run from 2017, and that's Smart Advertisement. And that is a company that we help build local businesses in a way where they're not only being seen digitally, but also through our live events, apps, and podcasting network. So we've learned a lot in the last handful of years, but overall marketing to us and what we've been able to see and experience is that it's a one of a kind thing. And I wouldn't want to be doing anything else in the world.
I love it. Yeah, definitely a lot of insight from both of you guys as we head in today. So I just want to preface with a question just surrounding the overall mindset, right? So when we talk about marketing and specifically about, you know, customer orientation and getting things out, whether it be content or specific products out to the customer, what type of mindset does marketing require as a whole?
I think marketing requires that mindset of creativity and just kind of being receptive to what your audience is going to be receptive to. So having that flexibility, being able to adjust your mindset, you know, you can go into something thinking, my audience is really going to like this. They're really going to enjoy this. This is going to bring people in. People are going to register for the race if they see this advertisement or if they see this video. And then if that doesn't succeed, being able to be flexible and to change your plan because you don't really know what your target market is going to want, is going to be receptive to. So being creative and then being just flexible.
I agree on all that because, you know, one thing that I truly love about what I do is just being creative and learning from a local business owner or a marketing team, you know, what their goals are. And that would be some of the best things to do is really just get to know your client and their expectation, their outreach and what they're trying to do. So almost kind of starting from the end in mind first in order for you to start. But I love the creative side of things, and this is definitely, like I said, just part of what I love is just the creative side and being creative, being flexible, like Piper was saying, are all key components when you're trying to plan out and strategize for marketing. Because, you know, if we create something now, it may just be only liked by myself or my wife or my mom. And, you know, our goal is to reach more people. So really, you know, what are the people wanting? Follow the trends on social medias, find the popular hashtags and not copy, but just put your own perspective and spin on the marketing that, you know, that can reach a lot of people.
Yeah. I think just both of you guys bring up points surrounding this idea of adaptability, right? And so it's been funny as I've been heading into my email and checking out certain college emails. I've been getting, TikTok trends as the new subject line. And so now it's just funny to see institutions really transitioning to this idea of tapping into the Gen Z market through specific social media. So definitely understand adaptability there, and allowing yourself, like you said, Tim, to really be customer and just orient around their overall needs, right? What do the consumers want, and how do I get them what they want? And then just tapping into the creative side. I love just getting on Canva, Adobe XD, whatever I can to really just experiment with different things. I find it that the more I put into it, obviously, the output is very symmetric. And so really love the creative side of marketing as well.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
sorry. So in terms of basic marketing tactics that are used by you at within your small business realm as well as Deca, just how does that overall process go, right? From brainstorming and generating some overall idea to actually generating and then launching that campaign. Tim, you want to go ahead and start there?
Yeah, I can go. I'll just go down with a prime example on someone that I'm working with right now. They were a referral from someone else that knew about our podcast network. They are already a current podcaster. They have their own website. They're launched on multiple platforms. They're recording. They're a podcaster. But they want to kind of break through obscurity. And so we had to sit down and figure out, what is the title of your show? They were even thinking about rebranding. I'm like, stop, put the brakes on that. You already have your story. We don't need to rebrand, but it starts with learning their story, because they're going to start talking about what they do. But when their story comes out and their why starts coming out, it's a lot easier to build around a marketing plan, because you know exactly who to target and how to target them. And I say that because their ultimate goal isn't only to grow their listener base, but to eventually use sponsorship money to pay themselves so they can move themselves away from their employment jobs. So it's not only just production and all that stuff, but they're trying to go for this for a full-time career. So how do we do that? Well, they're a weight loss surgery type podcast. They talk about they've had weight loss surgery themselves. They have guests that have been on there. They have doctors that have been on their show as guests. And so what I started to learn was that it was like this, almost like a therapy that they were doing, not only for their guests, their listeners and followers, but it was almost therapy for themselves. So I knew that they would work extra hard at their marketing plan, even if they weren't getting paid at first. Right. And so I just built this plan, and it's a 4-month plan, and we learned how to skyrocket the content. So that's one thing. We want to overload all social media networks with as much content as possible. Why? Because it's free platforms. We want to be able to have brand recognition, and that's one way to kind of put up a bunch of billboards. So that was one thing that we were doing. We were making sure that they were all of their audio platforms on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all these podcast platforms. They were on that because there's a way to reach out to the podcast community outside of social media. And you need some of these platforms like Spodcasts and, just these different platforms. So we were tidying up their podcast on that. And then the next part was to be a guest. So I think it is very, very crucial not only to host a podcast, but to market yourself as an influencer, so your podcast now has valor. So my next part was you need to go on a podcast tour. And not only do your own show on a regular basis, but you need to get in front of doctors and mentors and people that are already doing podcasts that are health related and all of that align with you. Now you blend the networks quicker than even Google could, because Spotify is not going to give you that access. iTunes isn't going to give you that access, but when you blend them together, you can. And this is pretty much a 4-month plan that we're going to be able to step and repeat and continue until they get to their desired location, because it's going to be the relationships that we bring in that are going to offset the cost for their sponsors. So that's pretty much the marketing plan we put out. Not to give everyone secrets, but it's a pretty solid plan.
think for Washington Deca, specifically, a lot of our marketing comes from this initial need. So a great example of that is at the beginning of this year, we needed to introduce our 2020-2021 Team Innovate, so our state officer team, and we couldn't do it the way we normally did. And at this specific time, we were trying to figure out how we could increase engagement on our social media platform through the quarantine and shutdowns. We just had our ICDC canceled, and we were trying to figure out how we could keep membership up, because that was our big concern. We were marketing Deca at that time, trying to keep membership up. And so we had this need of, we needed to keep people engaged with the social media, because that was our main way of keeping people engaged with Deca. And so we put all our heads together and really tried to come up with some ideas of how we could, show off the team, show off what we were doing. So I think for Deca, all of our ideas, the plan for a marketing campaign comes from a need. And so oftentimes we are looking at trends, because we're marketing to high school students, to Deca members. So we're looking for trends. And lately that's been off TikTok or Instagram or just social media platforms, because that's what's trending. And so as we watch for trends, we find ways to do this. And over the last couple of months, we've seen lots of different trends on social media, and that's been really helpful. So for Deca in particular, we look for those trends, and then we figure out where it'll fit best, because we are marketing on different platforms to different people. On Instagram, we're marketing to our members, and on Facebook, we're marketing to our advisors and our parents even. So just kind of figuring out what will work best and where it will fit best is kind of what we've been doing over the last couple of months. It's what I've been doing with my own marketing for the 5K, as well as we're marketing for a virtual race, which is completely different than anything I've ever seen before in my years of watching my parents run marathons and watching the marketing for that. It's completely different. And so finding ways to do a campaign of, okay, we're going to feature a small business from our community every day this week, and then they'll sponsor us and we'll promote them. And that campaign has been really successful, because we've gotten a lot of engagement from them, from their customers, and who's engaged with them, and then who's now engaged with us and who's registered for our race because they want to support the local bakery or the antique shop that everyone loves in my town. And so kind of those campaigns have come from that need of, well, these people have sponsored us, so now we have to sponsor them in a sense. So let's get them out there and let's push their materials. So I think for Deca projects like the 5K, it all comes from a need. And then what will you do to fill that need, to make sure that happens, to meet that criteria?
Yeah, I really love all of the points made there. First one being, Tim, I know you mentioned content diversity, right? So specifically, you can be on Spotify, you can be on YouTube, and you can be on certain channels, right, within social media, but it's really about, external sources as well. What are you doing to gain press releases? What are you doing to really just put your product within the eyes of everyone, right? Because if it's segmented just specifically towards Instagram or just specifically towards Snapchat, then you're only getting about 1/8 or even 1/16 of the market to see the overall viable product, right? So how do you put it in front of multiple people's eyes? That way they can understand specifically what you do. And then the second thing you talked about was relationship building, right? And so this goes back to CRM, right? And just giving customers exactly what they want, but then also building a relationship with them. And Piper, I know you mentioned the 5K, which it's amazing. And I think it's also very hard right now, just within virtual, like you said, because races are supposed to happen in person. This is where the community comes together to obviously move towards something bigger. But in this case, it's how do you still keep people engaged? How do you still keep people excited about something that right now they don't have to feel excited about it, right? So what types of things are you doing to really entice them and just incentivize them to continue participating in this regardless? And so in terms of an anecdote here, working with a current company that I co-founded about 14 months ago, and so quarantine hit, all of our content was done, in terms of vlogging, and so we would have company meetings on a bi-weekly basis, and so all of our content was coming from that, right? These in-person events that we would have, where we would then put those on our Instagram and Facebook. And so now COVID hit, and obviously everything's virtual, and so now it was, how do we pivot into allowing people to really understand specifically what we're doing, since we're not posting these videos on a weekly basis? And so it was a lot of brainstorming again. And then it was, how do we break down each month into one central theme and then put out 9 to 10 posts that fit with each one. So I think it's really just about, narrowing everything down, understanding the overall plan, not only from a yearly standpoint and what you want to promote within a year, but then also breaking that down in terms of months, right? Just to really understand specifically what you're going to give. So just heading into my next question, just how do you stay away from ideas that, might make your customers a bit weary about overall content that you're posting, or just how do you really ensure that they understand everything?
I think for me and for my experience, it's important for me to not assume that the people who are registering for the 5K know about cystic fibrosis or they enjoy racing. I can't make any assumptions about the people that are registering or the people that are engaging with my content. So something that I have really taken to doing is doing maybe a weekly post with a fact about, what I'm trying to sell. And it's actually not, the 5K, it's the charity. I'm trying to, sell this idea that this is an important cause. We all need to support this because this is something important to me and it's important to other people in the community. And so trying to make sure that I'm putting out content that isn't tailored to the specific group, which is realistically, if I was registering for the race, it'd because I'm a runner who is passionate about cystic fibrosis. Well, my neighbor who's registering doesn't run and they don't know much about cystic fibrosis, but they're registering because they know me. Mm-hmm. And my friend from school, well, her mom is registering because she wants to run a 5K. She's never run a 5K before. So putting out content that, I'm putting out facts about cystic fibrosis because I want to make sure that people feel fired up about this charity. And I'm putting out things about walking the 5K or walking your dog. You can ride your bike, just all different sorts of things, not making the assumption that anyone who is looking at my content thinks the way I do or thinks the way my friend who looked over the post that I made thinks. And just kind of trying to make appealing content, but not necessarily making assumptions because I don't know what my viewers are thinking. I don't know how they feel about what we're posting. And similarly with the Washington Deca marketing that we're doing, I'm not going to make the assumption that the people viewing it are Deca members yet. I want to make the assumption that they're looking at the materials and they're thinking, oh, I want to join Deca. I just saw this awesome video of people at ICDC from 2 years ago. I want to join Deca. I want to be a part of that. But you can't just make that post or you can't just put out that article and assume that it's a current member and you're trying to keep them engaged. You want to assume that it's just someone who's interested as well. So kind of looking at all the marketing materials through different lenses and trying to make sure that it's all encompassing, that anyone looking at it would be somewhat engaged and from different angles. And that might not just be the one post or the one article, it's the whole plan. When you're looking at your marketing calendar, do you have a post for every type of person that you're trying to target with these posts or with these articles or with this marketing material, and just making the assumption that there's going to be different types of people, not the assumption that your target demographic is just this one type of person who thinks the same.
Wow. Yeah. And that relates to a lot of what we do as well. And, something that Piper had says is she said that she doesn't know how they're going to feel. And that's something how I actually use my creative side and what I'm going to create in Canva and all these other different places is how is this content making me feel? Because if I can feel a certain way, then maybe I can project the content to make my client or future customer feel the same way. So I would say that would be one starting point. But having clients, and I obviously, just like you guys, you have friends and you have people that review your content. They have good feedback. And so, when the client's like, I like this, but I wish it looked like this, then you go back to the drawing board and you do it. I create way more content that is ever needed or paid for by the client. And it's only because I don't know what's going to stick on the wall. I mean, I may have to do the same post that's like $2 off pies Mondays and Tuesdays, but 4 different ways, because like Piper said, you need to tailor it to different people. You might have someone that enjoys a scenic background versus a pizza background. Just because you're talking about pizza doesn't mean that they're going to relate to it. They like the fishing boat in the background. So they're just going to click on it and enjoy it just because that's who they are. So so being able to just almost fail your way to success, because at no point in time is your marketing going to be good enough to stop, and at no point in time are you ever going to be good enough to just hang up the boots and run with it. So I always just try to become better and create more, and that's kind of how we go about some of these marketing plans, because our clients guide us pretty well with what they want. And I would actually be in a very difficult situation if Piper was doing what she was doing and trying to relate to an entire community about one event, because you do have to relate to each and every different genre, generation, and everything. So.
Yeah, I think just going and just pivoting off of what you said first, Tim, this idea of remaining authentic, right? When all of your content is posted. So how you feel should be, in a similar feeling to how your customer base is going to feel, or how all of the viewers are going to feel when they see something. I know going through and watching certain Deca videos sophomore year, like Piper attested to, really got me fired up about competing, and it allowed me to really understand, okay, this is what it's going to look like if I end up on stage, or if I'm at Maidenbauer Center in Bellevue competing. And so this idea of allowing the customer to picture themselves within whatever instance you're specifically marketing, I think is something that's so valuable, right? And then I brought this up in the last podcast episode, but I think the biggest hack to marketing is understanding the law of diminishing return, right? So something might be very, very positive and very, very amazing at the beginning, but then as time goes on, the return continues to diminish, right? And so people stop engaging, or they just don't like the content anymore because either the video was too old and it was great at the start, but after you watch it 5 to 10 times, it just gets boring, right? So how do you continue to keep people engaged over time? And I think that's where authenticity really comes into play, right? Because when you put out content that is 100% dedicated to them, 100% rooted in everything that they want to do, now people have the chance to continue to engage. And then last thing I want to touch upon is, I know, Piper, you talked about understanding the division between people that are already knowledgeable about cystic fibrosis and people who are past runners. And so just providing awareness for both, aspects of it, right? So specific things of, I like to use the 80-20 rule. So 80% of non-promotional content, 20% of promotional content. And so how do you really educate people and just provide some sort of social awareness in terms of X problem you're solving or X solution you're attempting to devise, specific things like that. So that way they can understand, be a bit more educated. And now in turn, they're going to be more engaged when you begin to post that promotional content. And now you say, sign up for the 5K, but you've already had 5 to 10 posts prior to that talking about, oh, here's what cystic fibrosis is, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing with my charity. And then you go ahead and send out the post for signing up. Now people have already had the chance to engage, that they've already been, overall holistically aware of what this problem is. And now they're going to be so much more incentivized to actually go ahead and sign up because they've had the chance to really engage with every aspect of the 5K.
Oh, yeah. And if I can add to that, being able to tailor that, having those testimonies, you're going to be able to put a face and a name, and it's going to pull on the heartstrings more. Not that that's what we want marketing to always do, but at the same time, we want people to support something that they can feel. And if you can get testimonies from people that are a part of it, or family members that have been affected by it, whatever, that's really going to bring in those that are just empathetic and want to be a part of it.
Perfect. So my next question just goes into the division between creativity and feasibility, and which one do you guys think is more important in marketing? And then specifically, just a tailored question to you, Piper. Do Deca judges prefer to see more creative or more feasible campaigns within the business plan?
I think something with Deca, just kind of jumping right into that part, is that you have to remember that a Deca judge is going to be sitting there and listening to so many presentations. I remember sitting in the conference center in Tacoma. On the day of the area competition, I was presenting my business startup plan. And I watched my specific judge. I don't know why I was watching that table. I think I just knew that was where I was going. I was watching and I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many people before me. Giant poster boards. Some people had like their flip books. Some people had their iPads. And I was thinking, well, what's going to set me apart? Like, what's going to be the thing that sets me apart from everyone else? And so, well, feasibility is extremely important in DECA specifically. If you can go into a presentation, whether it's your role play, whether it's your business startup plan, whether it's your community giving project, if you can have a creative idea and know in your head how you're going to execute it, how it's going to become feasible, that's going to set you apart so much more. My business startup plan was about a car lot. So I've grown up watching my grandparents start and sell car lots my whole life. So it's kind of what I knew. It was extremely feasible, but I put my own spin on it and I tried to make it exciting and fun. And so I presented that to my judge and I had my exciting way of presenting it, and it was creative and it was fun. And I made it to state and it was really cool. But then I went back the next year and I was presenting this community giving project, which was just a lot more creative. I think I was able to really put my own spin on that. And I think that's what sets it apart, is when you go in and you have a project that has your own flair, because a judge is going to sit there and they're going to listen to, maybe 10 presentations before you. Maybe you're the first one. But either way, you want to be set apart by what you're saying and what you're doing and how you're putting, your personal spin on it. Especially with the role plays, that's something really important to remember, is that, just be creative and then make it doable, sell it, bring it home, say we could actually do this, but make it creative, make it fun, because that's what is exciting about marketing. That's what's so exciting, is you have all this room to just do whatever you want. You just got to make it happen.
Yeah. I can't say the same stuff essentially, except I don't have DECA judges. I have 5.1 million businesses that I can market to in the United States of America. So again, I think your job as DECA students and what you're doing through the program is actually a little bit more difficult than the real world at some points, because you may only have one or two people that you have to pitch to. If two people tell me no, I go ask 50 more. You know what I'm saying? And so it doesn't hurt me when someone doesn't like either my creative style or not, because eventually what has made us really, really successful is just, like I said before, building the relationships. And so you're going to get enough people that are going to be a part of it. But I think creating and being the creative side of the marketing plan and all that good stuff is crucial, because you have to be able to stand out. And one way that I would stand out in front of judges or in front of a business is not necessarily what I can do for them, just my story alone. Your story is unique to you and only you. And if you can resonate by getting vulnerable, then you can literally sell ketchup to a lady in white gloves. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter, because she's going to enjoy who you are and building a relationship with you. Feasible, obviously, you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So that's something that I always do, is I know in my mind I can always do more. I undersell myself, and then I outprove myself by my own work tactics. And it's not to undersell or undermine what I do. It's just I'm willing to give more to impact more people at a lower dollar amount than trying to become a 1% company only for the 3%ers. I want to become a 1% company for the 97%ers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love what you said there about story. Just a quick little background. I was competing at the state conference a couple years ago. Regional conference a couple years ago, and I was pitching this idea for the AT&T pitch competition, and I had an allergic reaction in California a year prior. And I went in with this business idea that was supposed to combat allergies and really allow people to just live with some extent of food freedom. And I was presenting my idea, and I didn't anticipate to, but I did end up tearing up a little when I started talking about my sister's reaction and how I saw her. And I wasn't expecting to get emotional within the process, but ended up winning first place. And I think the biggest differentiating factor was the fact that there was something bigger connected to it, right? Yeah, there was this evident problem, but the fact that I had experienced this a couple of times, the fact that I took the time to really notice how my family was feeling, during the entire situation, it was like, okay, this is going to up level you so much more because now you have something to connect with the audience on more of an ethos level. So I definitely love the idea of tying in a story to the overall presentation.
For sure.
So my next question is surrounding high risk marketing strategies. And so I just want to preface this question with an anecdote from my standpoint in terms of a high risk marketing strategy, and then obviously getting your guys's outlook on that as well. So I'm currently working with an MIT startup called PathCheck, and it's really surrounded the pandemic. What can we do to implore this contact tracing strategy within all communities within the United States, and then scale to the world, right? And so obviously this is very, very tough because data and privacy and overall government sharing in terms of just that overall data collection has been very, very tough. And so it's how do we really entice people to get onto this app, right? I think the overall rate is for every 200 downloads, we can save about 1,000 lives, something on those lines. So it's really, really impactful, but there's just so much overall discourse in terms of, if the government's going to be able to have my data, if I do get diagnosed, then everybody knows. And so how do we introduce anonymity into it? And so all of these different things, when we go to market and post it on our social media, it's very, very hard to get people to download the app. So any advice there in terms of high risk marketing strategies, how to execute on those so you can actually gain users in sort of a controversial situation?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay. Well, being in the actual marketing field and trying to adapt with the seasons, and that's something that Piper had brought up is trends. We kind of look at it as seasons. You can prepare for seasons, like election seasons, and so we created an entire video viral type of podcasting for politicians so they can actually record themselves. So instead of knocking on your door, it's called virtual door knocking campaigning in 2020. It got a lot of attraction. We helped a lot of candidates. We've helped, I think the total amount of votes that we helped out between 5 different candidates was well over 50, 60,000 votes that we helped between 3 or 4 different candidates. And I say that's part of the high risk because we had, as a company, we want to give everybody a voice. And so it doesn't matter what side of the playing field you are on, if it's politics or any of these high risk, high marketing stances where you kind of have to choose. We chose to be the platform allowing all people to have a voice. And if we have one person that comes in and says it a certain way, well, we would love to hear the other side. But when you market that to people that you're not seeing face to face, it can get ugly. You got people that are like power keyboard haters, but when we get in front of people face to face, they're really humans, and we can have great dialogue. But marketing, you have to be very careful when you start hitting these high risk marketing cases. And honestly, you're not going to win them all, and you're going to have to understand that whatever point you're trying to discuss or trying to highlight or market, you just have to understand that there's going to be a slew of people that just don't like it, don't agree with it, and just won't go with it. So that's kind of what I got with that.
I honestly don't have a ton of experience with the high risk marketing strategies, but I do know that for the 5K, we started marketing, asking people to not only register, but first businesses to donate to the foundation to help us put on this 5K at kind of the beginning of the pandemic and the shutdown. And so kind of tiptoeing around that, understanding that the economy was essentially shut down. These businesses are shut down. And just trying to navigate that was pretty tricky because it was a hard time for these small businesses, and to just respect that and to understand that there's other circumstances, and to just be very conscientious of the phrasing we were using and how frequently we were posting or how frequently we were sending out articles or emails or any of that. Just being very conscientious and understanding that it was okay to hear no. The year prior, we had received a lot of really positive feedback because it's a very moving story. People like to hear that they're helping kids with cystic fibrosis, and I can tell my story about how it relates to my life. And it was just different, but understanding that it's okay to hear no. They're not upset with me or with the 5K or with DECA for us asking, but also understanding that we need to be respectful and just be aware of the language we're using and that it is a tricky time. So I think just being conscientious and being receptive to hearing different things and getting different feedback, because it is just an unprecedented time and we weren't really prepared for that. And how could we be prepared for that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I totally understand when you just talk about, right, being cognizant of the overall environment and, what specific things are you taking a look there when you go ahead and market the event within this
Read the
high-risk
room
category? Yeah. So I want to get into a couple questions here specific to marketing. So I'll just kick it off with social media marketing. How do you start out with that? What social platforms are right for the business? Piper, why don't we go ahead and start with you for this one?
I think social media marketing, especially over the last years, I've stepped into this role of really undertaking the Washington Deca marketing along with the cystic fibrosis 5K. Social media is such a huge tool, but you have to kind of look at it as a tool versus a social site. I had to shift my lens from thinking, well, this is where I'm sharing this marathon I just did with my friends to, no, this is how we're going to get people to register for the 5K or to become DECA members. And so I think social media is a huge tool, but there is overdoing it. You can overdo social media, especially with high school students. And I think that over the last year, I've really realized that you have to have a purpose for all your posts. I'm really lucky to have been able to kind of watch the marketing team with the DECA staff and watch how they do it. And we, at the beginning of my term, we laid out the entire year, the entire school year, and we looked at all the posts we were going to do and how it is a puzzle, essentially. You can't post too much. You can't overdo it. We don't post things that have no meaning. When we post something on the Instagram page, things that I might have once ignored, I'm looking at now and thinking, well, that's not just a Canva post that they filled in and threw on there because they needed a post for Thursday. They had a meaning for that. Whether it's promoting the sponsors, the people that are making these conferences happen, or if it's introducing the DECA, the Team Innovate, or if it's showing that we have a conference coming up, there's a meaning for all the posts. And so I think that social media marketing it's a lot about understanding what people are going to look at. What are they actually going to care about? And I think looking at the number of views you have or the number of likes you get or who's looking at your posts, especially on Instagram, because that's where we are seeing the majority of high school students being engaged. We put out videos for Innovate 2020 promoting that, and they were really awesome. They had highlight reels from old conferences. So immediately that's going to get more engagement because that is showing in-person things. It's showing events that people miss, that students miss because that was in person. That's nostalgia. That's a really great tactic for getting engagement. And those videos, those posts got so many more views than our just simple Canva posts thanking our sponsors. And so understanding that on social media, it's not going to be across the board where we have X amount of followers, so we get X amount of views. No, there's going to be things that they're going to be more receptive to. And so really understanding how to tailor that idea. And for DECA in particular, there are posts that we'll create, there's content that we'll create that we're not going to use on every platform. We're not going to put the same video that we put on Instagram that's introducing the marketing team. We're not going to put that on Facebook because the people on Facebook aren't going to care about that content. They want to see the schedule for the conference. They want to see, when their students are competing, when their students need to join the Zoom or be at the conference center. And so understanding that there's a time and a place for all types of content and that they can fit, everything can fit on the calendar, but you need to be conscientious of where you're putting it and how much you're putting on social media because people only want to see, certain types of posts, certain times. And that, especially with the target market that we're looking at, you can't overdo it because they want to see certain things and they don't want to see too much.
I think all that's great advice. And I'm sure that's worked out for you. And but in our world as small business owners, I don't have time to only tailor content to the majority. Um, a lot of what we've seen, and just to backstory it, I was launching our Facebook page for the first time, about 3 years ago. And I had a good friend say, well, you don't have enough content to launch it. I'm like, I don't care. I need to launch it. The content will come, the followers will come. And he just heard this from other sources saying that you need content before the following came. Well, 3 years later, we've reached over 2 million people. I post daily. And it may work because you guys are looking for the students in one platform and another type of engagement on another platform. I'm looking for engagements across the board. I don't care where they come from. And so we'll put out tons and tons of content. And when you actually see one that sticks, it resonates with the community, you're seeing engagements, comments, likes, and shares, then you boost that. You boost that one because that's organically going to reach more people with a paid boost. And that's kind of how I've seen social media work. I love it and I hate it because we have freedom of speech as a US citizen, but when you go on these platforms, it's limited. So I say to the bottom part of my heart, social media is only a tool. It should not be the all end all. Because eventually you need a website to bring and draw people to, because that's going to be your bread and butter, not someone else's platform. So I love social media. I hate it at the same time. It's built our company, but then again, it's limiting when you have high risk profile cases like politicians that come through because we get shut down. And so, and their voices matter as well. So how do you deal with this? And so again, social media, I love it and I hate it, and I'll use it until I need to. And it's only a marketing tactic for me, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just pulling from what both of you guys said, intentional thinking is the biggest thing that I've really had to take a look at whenever I'm executing a campaign, right? So obviously being cognizant of who's taking a look at it, what times are best to post, what content where, but then really just understanding that everything I post needs to provide value to the viewer, right? I mean, I'm not just gonna post some random photo or put some random campaign into place without it providing value to said consumer, said customer, right? So how do I do that? And then in terms of social media, I really love what you said, Tim, just about loving it and hating it, because I think you attested to this a bit earlier, but it's the biggest free tool that's out there, right? It really can grow the brand organically. But I think a lot of people get really honed in on this idea of social media, and now that becomes their primary form of marketing. When what you're really trying to do, both as a small business as well as within your Deca startup plan, is just build a brand. And right, a brand is built around the people, it's built around the website, it's built around the blog, it's built around the YouTube, all of these different channels. A brand isn't just built around an Instagram page or a TikTok page or a LinkedIn page, right? So you need to have a multifaceted system in order to really execute with everything in terms of that marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And then my next question is just about my favorite form of marketing, which is word of mouth. So can you guys just provide a quick definition for the listeners, as well as give one of your best examples of word of mouth when it's worked for you guys?
Word of mouth marketing, I think I agree. It's an amazing tool because it's just people talking to one another. If it comes up in conversation, it comes up in conversation. And so one of the ways that I can best an example I can best put is the 5K that we host. We had a giant group from our community come out. It's called the Ruck Club, and they're super involved in our community. And I had never met anyone from that. I had never seen them or heard of them. And I asked them, I was like, "How did you find out about us?" And one of their members goes to the CrossFit gym in our community, and they were like, "You should get involved with this because we're sponsoring them. We're going to have a booth there. We're going to have a competition there." And so they made this connection just by having a conversation with someone from their gym, and decided to get 50 people to come and register for the 5K and to walk the 5K. And it was so cool for me to see that like you said, it's not the end all be all that they see it on social media or they see a website. They heard about it. They had a conversation face to face. And obviously at this moment in time, it's going to look a little different having those conversations and using word of mouth marketing, but it still can happen. When people are talking to one another about things that they're excited about. And so it kind of comes down to, what's going to come up in conversation? What are people going to be interested in or engaged with? No matter how they find out about it, you want it to come up in conversation for them to tell their friends, their family, about this event, about this product, about this service, and just talking about it, just telling people, you should get involved with this. You should use this. You should take a look at this. And it can be extremely beneficial.
Yeah, word of mouth is really where you want to be. Those pay-per-clicks in social media, that's only going to, I think is that as like your billboard, right? Yeah, I mean, you're 1 through 7 first timers of seeing your product brand or logo, and then that word of mouth is what's going to sell them. And that's something that we tell all of our clients, is that we have to figure out a way and strategize a way where when someone talks about podcasting, they're speaking your name. When they're talking about pizza, they're saying your name. When they're talking about whatever it is that your product or service is, they have got to be speaking your name. And if they're not, then you're missing out on the gold, the primo. And that's the word of mouth. Personally, how I built this company was that in 2017, instead of going to PA school, which was my master's degree for becoming from a certified surgical tech and first assist, I left college and ended up going to Uber in 2017 in January. From then until February of this year, I met over 40,000 people personally through Uber and Lyft, live events, and telling everyone my story one way or the other. If it's a quick business card to being able to take someone for a 30-minute trip to Seattle, whatever it was, they got to hear it. And they got to hear it because they had no choice, because they sat in my car. And so this was the biggest part of my testimony, is the fact that I was literally able to hear and listen thousands to thousands of stories of this community to figure out what was needed most in this community. And it was a platform to be heard. And that was my word of mouth.
A platform to be heard. That is a tagline. I think in terms of my personal experience with my podcast, when I released my personal podcast in May, the word of mouth was the biggest factor that I had, right? And so even though we weren't in school walking around campus and I could talk about it, it was, just getting on FaceTime calls with people, scheduling one-on-ones with past mentors I had, with current friends I had, just giving a quick FaceTime call to someone and say, hey, have you listened to it? And then just asking for feedback too. I think that's one thing that I've become a bit more prone to as time has gone on, whether it be a current business or a podcast. It's just, what are your thoughts? Have you taken a listen? And then that way you allow people to really give their advice in terms of what you're doing, right? And so now you make them feel a part of your overall community, right? So how do you bring people in? So now they're not just a listener, now they're not just a consumer, but now they are a part of your specific process, right? So that's when this entire idea of family marketing, or really family entrepreneurship, as I like to classify it, that's where, it really comes into play.
Spot on, man.
So before I get into my last question, just want to thank you guys so much. Really appreciated the time from both Piper and Tim. Amazing insight. It's at the beginning when we were brainstorming how long we wanted the episodes, it was 15-30 minutes, and we've gone on for 50 minutes here. So love the conversation, love the insight. Just really quickly, where can all of the listeners find you in terms of social channels or websites?
On Instagram and Twitter, I am at Area 7 Deca. And from there, my personal pages are tagged, but at Area 7 Deca is where I post the majority of my updates for Deca. And then from there, you can find Washington Deca, where all the competition updates and all the all the good news from Deca can be found.
You can find me on social media, on Facebook and Instagram at BD Local Media. We're also on YouTube as well. And we have many, many different shows that span across all podcast platforms. So just go to either our Facebook or Instagram pages and you'll see all of those podcast shows that are part of it. Don't forget to download the BD Local app on your iOS phone as well, so you can carry around these great podcast shows no matter where you travel.
I love it. I love it. So adding on to those resources, just what specific websites or tools do you guys have for the audience to really harness and take advantage of as we get into the Deca and small business seasons here?
For Deca, just a tool that I use for all my marketing, really simple. I think any student who's doing any major project probably uses Canva. I use Canva for just about everything, for my 20-page papers, for my posts on my personal account. Even as I've gotten farther into my Deca experience, I've realized, why not just enhance all my posts or all my just everything. I print business cards. I printed my campaign materials for my Deca campaign, all from Canva. So I really have learned to lean into those free tools online. That's the primary source I use. And there are plenty other out there, but I love Canva. And then I use social media. I was not really big into social media until I joined Deca and realized that that's where I'm going to, find the majority of my peers and the majority of the members is on social media. So really leaning into the trends and what people are doing to reach people with whatever your mission is.
Yeah, I love that. I love Canva too, so I'm going to promote that as well. I'm a Canva pro. But also, honestly, build relationships. You got to meet new people. There's no way to tell someone new your story. I mean, I had this as an alarm on my phone, and it still is, and it just says, go meet someone new today. And it can be social media, it can be in person. I understand that we're in a pandemic at this point in time, so be safe, but at the same time, get excited for your story, because you're the only one living it. And if you're not excited for it, then no one else will be. And I think that's what has really resonated, because I got so excited for a story that I was able to marry my wife. To convince someone to marry you, you had to be really excited about life. And honestly, I have one of the best partners in the world with me. So you got to build relationships, meet new people.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the perfect way to end this one. So I will say LinkedIn has been the biggest source for me. That's been my go-to platform to just gain exposure to opportunities, as well as, like you attested to, Tim, just really build relationships. And so I've heard it from some of my mentors and CEO coaches that I've worked with, which are like, go meet someone new every single day, build a new relationship. I use Slack a lot, and so there's this global Slack community that I'm on, and one of our requirements as part of the program is send 5 different DMs to people that you don't know every single day, right? Just gain exposure to different people, have one-on-ones, have a quick brain date. That's what we like to classify them as, and just talk to different people, right? The more exposure you get to different people, you get to gain some more self-awareness. You get to understand a bit more about yourself, gain some more clarity around your story, but then you also get to learn and understand someone else's. So really, really love the ending there.
Well, thank you so much for having us, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. Appreciate the time, guys. Thank you so much. I think that wraps it up for today. Thank you again to Piper and Tim for joining us, and another huge thanks to all of you guys who listened in. The team and I are really, really excited to move forward with the Level Up podcast, and we look forward to sharing everything we know about how to write a business plan with the Deca and small business community. Take a second to follow us at the Level Up Podcast _ for updates, and find weekly episodes at the Washington Deca Instagram, as well as on all platforms and within the BD Local Media Facebook and YouTube pages. We hope to see you guys next week, where we will be taking a look at how to figure out your logistics and key metrics. Thanks again, and we can't wait to compete in Deca this upcoming season with you. And for you small business owners, go kill it.